All right. Welcome, one and all, to That Metal Channel. Today on Hook in Mouth Metalcast, we are going to be talking about album covers and band names. Album covers come in a variety of art forms and pictures, images, shall we say. So, will only seeing the art sell you their album? Will
Not ever hearing the band.
without hearing the band? Will the name of the band or album sell you to buy it? And which ones will turn you off from buying it, not even hearing them? They could be right up your alley and perfect fit for you, but something turns you off and says, yeah, no. So that's what we are going to discover today with our gracious host and co-host, Metal Mike.
What's going on, people? And I would add as a prerequisite to this that this discussion in no way means that we do not like the music. There's going to be bands on here that we're going to talk about that I absolutely love the musicianship and the music they make, and we're about to get into it. So,
And I myself might love a freaking album cover, think it's badass, put it in and just about puke.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you never saw the album cover, half the stuff you wouldn't understand what they were saying anyway, and you could jam it joyfully blissless, like
ignorance
free
is bliss.
any kind of tethers to any worldly ideals, right?
Right. Yeah, let's say you're listening to a channel, heavy metal channel of some description, because there's a variety of them on XM radio. You don't get a little image on your dashboard, or you probably might get the title of the band and the name, right? But let's just say you're busy driving, you're not looking at the screen, or it's on the TV in the other room and you're just working around the house, so it's white noise, but you're hearing it, right? But you're not able to see the picture or hear the band name, and you're listening, you're freaking jamming out, and you run into the living room, you're like, who the fuck is this? You know, I was jamming to it, but the name is like, can I get past the
Yeah,
name?
like we mentioned before on the last podcast, or maybe it was one before. The first time I heard Deicide, it was just a white tape with Deicide written in a Sharpie. I didn't know who Deicide was, but I did know what that name meant.
Right.
Like at an early age, I grew up in church and stuff, so I knew what the word Deicide meant. So I was already standoffish, and not because I'm a overly religious person or go to church, but at that time, young, impressionable, I was already like half in and half out, half in church, half in the world, experiencing metal for the first time, still being forced kind of to go to church. I went to a private school. That was the school I went to was the church I went to.
Right.
So I was there 7 days a freaking week, man. And
Painful.
It gets ingrained in you. And then even if you depart from it, you still have that, well, even though I don't really believe in it, I still don't want to do this, say these blasphemous things, or that what the church would consider blasphemous things. For me, it's just made up words by mankind, and you can just apply that to everything across the freaking board, because we've been lied to about everything. So what the hell do we trust? Trust in death metal. No, but there's been a lot of death metal covers, especially death metal. I mean, you can cite bands like Slayer and stuff like that with the pentagrams and all that. But I watched, some documentaries this morning about Satanism in metal, and it's absolutely not true. There's a few instances in the black metal world where they are actually Satanists and be doing some crazy shit. But as far as like devil worship and all that, and sacrifice and altars and all that crap, it's not there, and it really isn't. And
well, even Dave Mustaine was into the witchcraftery stuff at a while, and then kind of got out of it. So it's not like some of them don't dabble.
He said he wasn't going to play those early songs that dealt with black magic and shit anymore, live.
Right.
Yeah, but death metal in particular, there's been a shitload of death metal bands all across the world. So much artwork, and so much of it is so just awful and disgusting, right? By most measures of society. But for me, being an artist, I always liked the intricate artwork. And I didn't really care that it was disgusting because I was into horror movies and that didn't bother me either.
Right.
And so, but the music really, really hit me hard and struck me and took my life over, man. And it was always a struggle going to shop for albums, especially like you said, bands that you hadn't heard of yet. And at that time, there was every band coming out you hadn't heard. So it was like, man, this artwork is really disgusting, dude, and or really sacrilegious or whatever. And but then one of your buddies would go ahead and buy it, or he already had it,
Right.
and you couldn't deny the shit, dude. You were like, oh, this is so good. Who is this? Oh, this is that band that you were scared to buy because you didn't like the cover art. And so that's a lesson you learn, and you got to chalk it up to symbols and imagery, ideology, and written word is all a spell by mankind. It is stuff that we've all made up. None of it has any freaking meaning because you can't prove it does.
Right.
And we talked about death metal being, in particularly in the beginning, just about a death kind of a theme. And then slowly that anti-religious aspect and the satanic aspect kind of slowly bled into it. And you would start seeing things that, you'd look at a Cannibal Corpse cover and you'd be like, yeah, that's horrific. But then you'd see some of these other ones that were like anti-religious, and they're like beheading Jesus and, all this really nasty, nasty stuff. And you're like, oh man, I don't want to pay for that.
Very dark, now, morbid, disturbing.
And now I'm a part of it, right? Because I paid to have it. So now I'm a part of that ethos. I'm with that group now. And it's a thing, man. It really is a thing when you're really when you come up with not a lot of money and you're trying to spread it around the best you can. And you really got to make hard decisions when it comes to that stuff, man.
Yeah, and some people, say they got more enough money to just go in and buy 20 albums, pick of the litter, whatever they choose. And,
and a lot of times they buy a lot of stuff that after listening, they're like, I don't really care for that one. They have like a whole other stack over here that they don't want now.
Yeah, if I handed you a stack of 20 cassette tapes, told you to jam out, take the ones you like and bring back the ones you don't, chances are you're going to bring back more than half of them. Because the ones that you do keep, you would probably listen to more than a couple of times, some more than others, obviously. One might be like, yeah, I like that song, it caught me, but the rest of the album sucked. So would you throw that onto a mixtape and then say, here, you can have this one back too?
Yeah, just get the one track you want. And that's kind of what happened when music went digital, man, and all them sharing sites and Metallica suing everybody. I had a site I used to use called Rapid Gator, and I got everything.
If it was out there, he had it.
I got everything, even new shit, man. I was getting just free, man, just ripping it.
All right. Well, here's an album cover that you see more often than not from a wide variety of bands throughout every genre. Does it sell it, or does it turn you off seeing the actual band on the cover?
Well, the band? No, I kind of like that because it reminds me of the old days. It also reminds me of Metallica garage days, and the old bands like Deep Purple and all that, and Black Sabbath, they used to do that. And really, that never bothered me. Dio and them did that. I mean, it never bothered me. And then you have these side companies like Rhino Records who would buy rights just to make compilations. And then that's the covers that they used a lot of times was the group photos. Yeah, that never bothered me.
Say,
There's a few death metal bands that did it. There's a few death metal bands that did that.
I was going to say, if it was an album or a band I've never heard of before, getting an image of what the band looked like could help me think, yeah, okay, I'll check this one out. Whereas if they looked too pansy-ass or wasn't my thing, like a Boy George or something, Yeah, no.
right?
Yeah, no.
Well,
That's not gonna work here. You know.
the cool ones had the great cover art, and then you'd flip it over, and they'd be standing there on the back. You'd see the guys on the back with the
Right.
titles of the songs, you know. So, or you'd open it up, and they'd be on the back of the book,
Or
or
they
in the
do
center,
spread out
whatever.
through each of the songs. There'd be like one here, one down there, one up here. You know, art layout kind of thing and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
You know, but
Well,
once you know a
let's show the
band,
folks, let's show the viewers some examples here. You got some examples you can pull up here of some of these album covers
I do. Give me a moment
while
here.
we're talking about it. And you know, I really loved the stuff like Entombed and Obituary was doing, and a lot of other bands used this same style of art, and then it was you know, that really intricate, lots of shadows and really tight, gnarly looking stuff. Yeah, Gorguts used it a lot, and then there was a bunch of bands that used it, man. I love that stuff.
But I pulled this one up to start with. This was one of my. If I saw that on an album cover, I'd grab it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, and actually, this was one of those from uh Deicide. You know, on Once Upon a Cross.
Yeah.
This covered the whole cassette tape,
Yeah.
right? So I grabbed it, and that was my first experience with Deicide. You know,
Yeah.
if
They definitely had to cover that Once Upon a Cross album, and it was definitely yeah, they had to
disturbing,
cover that.
let's just say it was
They wasn't
disturbing.
gonna sell albums if they didn't cover that, man.
Right. Well, honestly, you know, a white sheet with blood on it wasn't any more gory than half of the shit that's out there without one of these on it. You know what I mean? But
Well, that was the original cover, and they did release it like that. And then the record company's like, "Nah, the record stores are sending this shit back. We can't sell it." So that's when
right,
they put that sticker over
right.
the full cover. And yeah, man,
So I figured I'd start
Slayer
with
was
this
the
one.
same way with "God Hates Us All." It was the same thing with Slayer. It had a big sticker over the whole cover.
Right. But I figured I'd start with this one because it says a whole lot for being just very simple. You know,
Yeah,
and you find it on other things too, like video games and movies and whatever else. You know, but to me, it really was back in the day in the rebellion days of I'm gonna get that. That's gonna piss somebody
yeah.
off. I'm gonna get that. You know what I mean? So this sold me on way too many freaking things over the days. All right, so let's go to one that you liked. This one here is Obituary, The End Complete. I can't.
Definitely my favorite Obituary album. This was Obituary's magnum opus. This was their greatest album. Uh, they had two before this, several after. They actually have a new album that is fan freaking tastic, dude. Uh,
Nice.
and this was to me their best album, and I just love that intricate artwork like that. Just that real gnarly looking artwork. And
Yeah, the
like I said,
big.
a lot of death metal bands used it in the '90s, and they still do. You know, I don't know who the artist was. I'm sure there's different artists doing it now in that style because
Right,
obviously I've seen it, and with AI now they can just put it in there and say create something in this style, and then you know.
right. Yeah, rather they put in an artist name or a theme or whichever. But yeah, you know, seeing caverns and chasms and spires like that with a dark, menacing look to it was always appealing to me. It didn't
Yeah,
need a bunch of different colors. I like this one where it's black, gray, a little white, and a little off greenish yellow in there. You know, the end complete to me could have been a much bigger font, a little thicker. You know,
yeah, they
as
wrote it in red too, so it's hard to see also.
right, and you know, it needed a little contrast. Maybe if they would have put it above obituary on there, or you know,
But see, that's
something
death
of
metal.
that. But
Death metal's underground. That's the way they were.
yeah, they were rough. They were raw. You know, they were a
Yeah,
little out there, a little bizarre in some cases. But you know, you take the first two words, the end, and you look at this desolate landscape that's pretty much ravaged. Rather, it's a volcano, fire, apocalypse of some sort, whatever. All right.
What you got next?
So Sabotage, to me, one of my favorite bands, always has been, probably always will be. But this album, Poets and Madmen, two things that to me, poets, that's creativity, expression, wordsmithing. There's a lot of things that poets represent, right? Whether it's the person, the personality, etc. And then you have madmen, right? Now, most people would look at somebody like Einstein. He was such a freaking genius, but he was also called a madman, right? The mad scientist, the guy that created things that you to this day couldn't live without because they focused, they drove their mind into this one thing kind of thing. So to me, just the title, Poets and Madmen, was why I chose this Sabotage album in particular. Because here you got the gates that are closed. You either got to be a poet or a madman to get past the gate to know what's going on behind it. Then you get the castle in the background. I've seen plenty of movies and stories and played video games where there's these fucked up, intricate locking systems on doors that only a madman could create. These kind of twisted things, right? Like steampunk animatronic type of things where you got to click this to do that to make that work and then do it again on something else. And so to me, this one really spoke a lot. You get this kind of unkept landscape in the picture, to where it's like this place has been abandoned, but it's still occupied. you know, they
Yeah,
care.
Sabotage they've always had great album covers, man. I mean, yeah, and they have one with them on the cover too.
Yeah. Streets, a rock opera that was on the cover, and I think there was, what was it, Fight for the Rock, the one where they're holding the flag like an Iwo Jima thing. Yeah, that
Yeah,
that that one was also pretty cool. And then the other thing in here, is the Black Crow, the Raven, whichever it is. I'm thinking it's probably a Raven. That in and of itself has a lot of freaking significance in art and meaning and dreams and all kinds of things. So, and then you get this really cool dark blue, but it's not like pitch black dead of night. You know, there's there's a certain hour of daylight where this perfect dark blue sky amplifies everything you're looking at in front of it. So to me, this album really had an artwork to it, and I don't know how many hours I stared at it when I was a kid, and I got the tape when I was jamming out to it. Obviously, some of that was to the lyrics on the inside, but a lot of it was just to the cover of it. And
yeah. I spent a lot of time staring at album covers, man.
it's like, yeah, just trying to glean meaning and just sit there
I
and
always liked it when I'd go to one of
fantasize.
my buddy's house who had like a large record collection, because then I really got to look at the artwork, right? Because like I said, we're talking about time when there was no computers. The biggest picture you had was in a magazine, and it
Right?
was probably album size, like uh, tape size or whatever in the magazine. So, one of my buddies, he had a massive album collection, so I'd love to go over there, man, because I get to look at the artwork,
Right?
huge.
Right?
I never bought records. I went from tapes to CDs to digital, and that's it. I missed the whole record craze.
Yeah, my sister was a big record fan. She started buying them young and early, and I don't know if my dad got her into it or what, but to this day, she still buys records from garage sales, thrift stores, auctions, whatever.
Yeah.
Just it could be freaking junk ass music. She don't care. She's buying them. She's just making an album cover. But let's
All right,
go.
what you got next?
Let's go to another one that you like. Seems they're sitting right here, and
Oh
again,
yeah,
very small. Entombed.
they're one of my favorite early death metal bands. That Swedish sound, uh, clandestine. Uh, Man, such a great album. Every track is just great on there. They got that real grindy sound, and again, it's that real intricate, gnarly looking artwork with a lot of the dark shading and stuff going on. And almost looks like the same artist is doing all these covers, and and for all I know, back in the day in the '90s, it may have well just only been this one guy doing this artwork.
Right.
And who knows, but nowadays, it's more apparent and more random than it's doing, like I said, doing it by computer and stuff. But this album is great. I love this band. I found this band early on, shortly after I found I was still listening to Pantera and all that, getting into Pantera and Sepultura in the early '90s, and I found this band and Obituary, and these were like the first two that I really jumped on and be like, I had to ask, who is that you just put in there? And they're like, oh, this is Entombed, and showed me the album, the cassette, and I was like, I went the next day and bought that, man. And didn't even bother to ask him if I could dub his tape. I knew I was going to buy it because I wanted the artwork
and to own it and have it so you can replay it over and over.
Well, I wanted the artwork. I could have probably dubbed it if I'd have worked hard enough on it. I would have been able to find a tape somewhere at that party and probably dubbed it. But I remember that instance very well because some crazy shit happened at that party. But that music just had such an effect on me at that time. And like I said, I'm like, I'm going to buy that tomorrow. I'm going to buy that. That's all I could think about the whole rest of the night was that fucking album, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
And artwork wise, I think you said it good. It was kind of that grindy feel, and it kind of has a grindish kind of texture again. Very much like that Cavern and Chasms, darker gray, a little bit of orange in there, splash of color with the blue. If I would have never heard them and this was something you showed me, say you went to hand me a cassette tape of this and I saw the band before I even heard them, I would have definitely jammed this one out without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we can point out about this style here. These couple of bands that we've looked at. This style is what's the word I'm looking for? It's not offensive.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't offend you when you look at it. It actually intrigues you. You're like, oh, where does this trail lead to? Is that a little man standing way down there?
Yeah.
Wow. What is that coming out of that freaking crater up at the top?
Yeah. Who's the shadow feature? Who's the shadow people? And what are they?
And it intrigues you, right? It doesn't offend your senses or your ideology.
Yeah.
Right?
It inspires thought. Yep.
Yeah. And that's what those are the album covers that I just absolutely loved. And you're right. I would buy any death metal band that had this style of artwork, even if I hadn't heard them. I would buy it. It's just I saw that style and it's automatically tied to the sound, right?
When you're putting out an album, you got the band that's cohesive, you got the music that has a feel and a vibe, and you try to make an art cover that fits that vibe or portrays, kind of tells in a sense what the band is and what they like to do. And you could probably put this on, say, like a pop rock thing, and it would not sell the album. No, it just won't fit.
We're going to talk about bands also that covers that we don't like.
Yep.
And we're going to show a few, but we're not going to get into the really crazy, grotesque, blasphemous stuff. If you guys want to see that, just Google most blasphemous death metal album art. You'll be there all day.
On that, as a segue, there's no crosses, there's no pentagrams, there's no anarchy sign, there's no symbolism here that's forefront, like say a Slayer album with a pentagram or something thereof.
Other than just ominous brooding death. Like it looks like if I walk there, I'm surely going to die.
Yeah, if you could walk there.
If you could get there. Yeah.
Do you know the password? Because obviously the guys in the background, they're wearing a cloak, which means it's a secret society, which means if you have this, you might get into that society. You never know. So it's very intriguing in that sense.
The passage is through the great forest and over King Mountain.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to throw one more of my likes and then we'll get into some dislike stuff. And then we'll
All
get
right.
into a few other things. And when I was looking for this cover, I found this picture with both of them. And
Well, that's perfect.
you know, let's just put it as Megadeth, you know, first time hearing, you know, Killing Is My Business is Good was the first album, which
Yep.
was really raw, really harsh kind of stuff, but it was Megadeth, right? And
Yep.
when Peace Sells came out, most people had heard about him before they ever saw the album cover. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just knowing Metallica, knowing what happened, all that. Yep.
Yeah, there was so much going on that you knew of Megadeth before you heard their first songs. You know, even on Killing Is My Business stuff. So for me, when like I said, when I was looking for the Rust in Peace one because the colors, the story behind what's on this cover, right? But when I saw this back to back, I was like, well, they're one and the same in the
And
background.
actually, if you look at Peace Sells, So Far So Good, So What, and Rust in Peace, there is a cohesive storyline, not a storyline, there's a cohesive ideology that flows throughout those three albums, and we all know what it means.
Yeah, and you know, most of it ties back to Dave Mustaine's upbringing and his internal struggles that were going on
Well,
and
I was going to
his
say it was a big fu to the GOV.
well, that's what I'm saying, you know, because he was forced into this religion and then into uh, Jehovah Witnessism, and it turned him off to the whole thing, you know, and then he was like we were saying, you know, awake. You know, we put the They Live glasses on, and so did he, and
Yeah,
that's what I'm seeing in both of these images here, with all the flags from the World Economic Forum or the Universal Councils of the world, not just America. You know, all these corrupt powers, which is
yeah,
what you see behind Vic in Rust in Pieces, right? The military industrial complex that runs those people behind each of those flags,
you got
right?
secret technology, secret weaponry, you got
Wars,
aliens.
wars and espionage that if you and I were to do, we would be mutilated, but they do it
Yeah.
second nature as if that's what their job is and they get away with it, you know. So to me, these two albums, seeing them both back to back in one picture was just it was perfect. I was
Then,
like,
of course, Peace Sells for me is kind of a commentary on the state of society, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, all kinds of it had everything. I mean, even David mentioned, you know, he was reading a book and he saw the line, yeah, of course, Peace would sell, but nobody would buy it. And that's where he came up with the title, Peace Sells, but
Because
who's buying?
peace doesn't perpetually make money.
Right. And that's what the album is basically about. All these
Yeah.
little parts where they were trying to sell you peace, but yet they were creating war so that you wanted peace, just so you would buy it so that they would get money on both sides. You know, the power, the glory, the whatever the fuck they wanted to do. And but yeah, I mean, again, when it came to Megadeth, I can't say the album cover sold me because Megadeth sold me. There isn't a Megadeth album that's gonna ever come out that I won't buy just because it's Megadeth, right? And it's not because oh he was kicked out of Metallica. No, the music, the lyrics, the stories, even the artwork. It's a complete package that I gotta have it. You know,
Right.
point blank, gotta have it. You know, it don't matter if it's euthanasia, dystopia, freaking cryptic writings, the world needs a hero, all these different albums. You know, there's some songs on some of them that I'm not that fond of, but the rest of them, I'm gonna thrash my head, man, point blank. So
Yeah.
this was
You
one
know,
of those. This was one of those where nothing could sell me better than Megadeth already did. They could put out a completely white album cover with no
yeah.
words on it whatsoever and just their name on the side. You know?
Well, they put up that one that just said Megadeth and it had the like compass arrows on it. That was pretty plain for Megadeth.
Yeah, Cryptic Writings was very simple, but it was Cryptic Writings. So
Yeah, it was kind of.
you really had to
Yeah.
dig into what it was. So
Well, that was during the time when Metallica had load and reload, so it was kind of like an era where they slowed down for a minute and they're like, eh. I'm like, well, then don't put nothing out, bro.
right. All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and go into a little bit of the more not fond ofs.
Okay.
And just so people know, the word hate started originally as not first choice. So it's okay to hate something if you have another choice that's more your preference. All right, well let's start with this one here as far as disgusting, disturbing, turn you off. Would you listen to this album if this is what you saw?
Probably because now this album popped up in our feed on our channel.
And let's just give them the name of the band in case they can't read all that red. Decapitated Christ.
With a pentagram separating the fonts.
Or the dot of the I, whichever it is. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a pentagram between the two words there. So this band popped up in our feed. I didn't swipe by it, but I was just moved on, looking at other stuff. I read the name of the band and I just scrolled on down to look for more stuff. Well, later, what was it, like a day later, maybe 2 days later, it premiered.
I happened to see it as a live premiere, so I went to the channel and I was listening to it. I sent Mike a link to it in his email. He stopped in to check it out, and I'll let you describe what you felt.
It's freaking massive. It's Colossus. It's some of the greatest death metal I've ever heard, and so well put together and interesting. Like the music is interesting. The transitions and time signatures and breakdowns and
blast beats
just
and
like
the growls and everything. It was very
everything
well
was
packaged.
like the greatest sounding death metal you might have ever heard in your life. Now, if I walked into a store and saw that album cover, not ever hearing that band, probably wouldn't buy that. Just for the fact of I don't mind the demon thing on there, whatever. I don't mind the artwork. It's the name of the band with the satanic moniker, and like I said, once again, I just don't want to pay money for that. And but as a caveat, I guess, that album is in our death metal playlist because it's that fucking good, man.
Well, my opinion, it all started with, my motive for being there, right? I saw it live. I figured we'd take our young channel, we'd go over there, maybe make a friend, say something in the comment section,
Right?
make sure that I was already subscribed to a metal producing channel that had more stuff that we could find or come across. So my motive for being there, let's just say that was one thing. But once I got there and the sound hit me, I knew it was good, right?
Yeah.
I had that vibe. It was good. I could have left at any time if it sucked, but I stayed to the end because it was good. It kept me captive. And
yeah, if I could give the listeners or the viewers a clue of kind of like compare this band to something, they sound a lot like Skeletal Remains. They don't sound like Skeletal Remains, but it's that style, really not quite technical, but intricate and slamming and very hard hitting and sharp, like sharply transitions and shit. Like, I don't know, man. It's amazing death metal.
I think technical is a good word to describe it because, like you said, the way it's written, the way it's cohesive, and then you can separate one song from the next by the different way that they played, even though it's still the same drive, the same grunge, the same vocal, but you could distinguish which one was a new song, a different song, right?
Yeah,
So there was
each song was very unique, especially in the way it started.
right.
Right. And that's another thing. Like none of the songs sounded alike. Like they weren't reprocessing material to get an extra track.
Right.
This was good shit.
Yeah. So anyway, as I was there jamming out, my motive shifted more to I was connecting with one of the guys that was jamming out there, you know, listening to it, and I had already made my connection with the channel host or whatever you'd call it. I was already subscribed. I was looking on their actual channel for some of the other styles that they had to know that, yeah, this is somebody I want to get to know or connect with. So anyway, we were jamming out, listening, chatting, and before long, one of the guys that was in there, me and him had a back and forth conversation for like the last two songs worth. And then when it ended, it was kind of like I got decapitated. The chat stopped, the music stopped, the whole thing came to an abrupt end, right? So I was like, well, now that I was kind of a little more focused over on the chat, not so much on the music, later that night I went back and I listened to this again.
I listened to it again myself. I listened to it again yesterday.
Right. And now, will this cover sell me as compared to the music already sold me because I wanted to go back and listen to it already, right? So just hearing the sound, I didn't really care so much about the title of the name of the band or the title of the album. That didn't really play into my thoughts as much as I liked what I heard. All right. So this is one of those cases where you hear it before you find out who they are. Right.
Yeah.
Because like I was saying, yeah, I saw the name and it didn't bother me.
Chance.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we did get a chance to see the artwork before we heard the music. So it is in this category of, you know, not knowing the band. Does the artwork, you know, like I said, I scrolled past it because of the name, dude.
Right. You know,
but once I heard it, totally different opinion.
For me, while I was there in the chat, I was looking at the artwork, and honestly, the big grotesque winged demon thing, it does nothing for me. Doesn't turn me on, doesn't turn me off. It literally doesn't arouse any emotional anything. I'm aware that demons are out there and they come in a billion forms, so a demon's a demon to me.
Yeah, it's not reminiscent of a piece of artwork. It's just some ghoul on there, right?
Well, you know, there
are. It is art, but it's not. You know, it's not like that other stuff that makes you wonder.
Well, there are some things I can say about the creature or the art form of it, but for me, what really caught my attention was the tank tracks and the green in the back from the tanks, and then the title of the album itself, Glorious Tyrannizing of Human Rats, which is basically controlling the sheep to make them go to the slaughter. Now, if you know me, this is something I fucking hate. I am not a fucking sheep and I will not follow them to the slaughter. So seeing that as the title, it sold me. And it wasn't until after all of this stuff that the word decapitating Christ started to weigh on me as to would I buy this band because of the name? Yeah. I love the music. I love the title. The artwork kind of talks about something I'm into, you know, but then the name is kind of like 3 out of 4, 3 wins. I buy the album. You know, will I get past the title of the band because the music is worth it and the subject matter is worth it? In this case, for me, I would. Would I be disgusted by the name? Probably off and on. You know, there'll be times where I'll be in a bad enough mood where, yeah, fuck that. You know, and then other days I'll be like, the fuck am I doing? You know, I do have a conscience. It just comes and goes when it feels like it. You know? So yeah, that's kind of my view on that one. It's the music was good and it hit me before the name, the title, or the art. You know, so that's just kind of where I stood on that one.
So this one, both of these album art struck me when I saw them for the first time the other day.
Is there one you want to talk about first before the other?
Well, we could start with this one and we'll go to the other one too.
All right.
This is a Dallas-based band. They've been around since I think 2018 or so. I think their first album was. So they've probably been together since at least 2015 or so.
And again, just in case you can't read it, the band's name is Creeping Death.
What a great name. You know they love some Metallica. But this just reminded me of just seeing this picture as a whole, not really taking in any individual piece of it, just looking at the whole picture. What is it saying to me? And you see these men in the middle center there, in the lowness of the canyon there, walking straight towards that giant vortex. And it's like, to me, it symbolizes man's like willingness to just risk it all for the unknown, you know, that they may gain some little piece of knowledge to, you know, answer where we came from or who we are, or maybe help us advance ourselves or something. And that's kind of what I saw with this, and just the style of art. It reminded me of that old style, you know, and it just man's ruin kind of thing, you know.
You know, back in the day, I did a lot of studying on Thoth and the Emerald tablets and things of that nature, and hermetics and the hermetic principles. And I came across a lot of artwork similar to this. You know, very metaphorical, very deep, but very simple. You know, you get the plateau with some mountains, and then it goes up off to this side, and it's got distorted.
Which is also symbolic in itself of, you know, being surrounded or engulfed or trapped, right?
Yeah, and then on the right hand side, I'm not sure if it's the waves crashing on the shore or if it's clouds. It's
Yeah, I don't know what that is either. Right? I thought they were just in a canyon, but maybe it is like ocean waves crashing. I don't know.
well, to me, it does look like ocean waves because if you look in the bottom right, it gets very dark, like the edge of a cliff.
Uh-huh.
You know, so imagine that cliff line going straight up. And then is it clouds that are coming in or is it the waves crashing onto shore? It's very thought provoking because it's
Yeah.
not descriptive enough to give you an answer. You have to be the little traveler going to the vortex to find out, you know?
Yeah.
But, and then,
And you got these like Stonehenge looking spots down in the lower right there, and then this
yep.
one like kind of looks almost like the top of a volcano almost.
Yeah, you definitely get this massive landscape, which
Right.
tells me that things are bigger than I am.
Yeah.
I'm just a micro in the macrocosm, right?
Yeah.
And then when I
Right.
do look at the vortex, it does have that kind of spinning, whirling feeling, but it also looks as though the land would start laying out as you got closer, keeping that eye at an equidistance the whole time you walk closer.
Like this thing's just gonna eat everything.
No, more like the further you go towards that vortex, the same distance you will always be.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it will produce the land in front of you that draws you closer, but you'll never get closer. You know?
Wow, that's a good insight right there. That's actually that actually fits real well, man.
Yeah, because I mean, think of it. You know, if is it swirling this way? Is it swirling this way? Or is it unfolding as it goes the way life unfolds each day, right? So each one of those stripes, each one of them white lines or black lines, is just another petal unfolding and a new piece of land to stand on. But that vortex just stays at a hand's distance no matter what, right? It's always there. It's calling, but it's just out of reach. And you got to
And
keep
this
going, you know?
this band is one hell of a death metal band. One of my favorites. They fucking rock, man. It is badass death metal. Especially this album and the next one we're gonna look at, which is their newest album.
But
I forget the title of it.
we'll get to that in a second. Let's pull the title of this one real quick because it really helped me understand what I was describing. The edge of persistence. Keep persisting, keep going, keep doing, keep persisting.
And
Which
that's
which
another
is
thing that
how
kind
I
of gave me.
which is how I saw that void would never get closer, but would always be there.
And that's like that title is another one of the things that kind of gave me like kind of helped me kind of figure out what I was looking at, because I was like, it's like, mankind never stops trying to progress to that next thing,
Right.
and it just wraps up the whole image with that title.
And another quick little thought, there's two colors. Well, there's three colors with a little bit of shade difference between them on this one. You can see there's a little bit of orange down by the bottom of the vortex, but everything else is whites and yellow, right? So you get this little gradient between white and yellow on the edge of orange. Everything else is black, right? So you're very limited on your view because it's not full of vibrant colors.
Yeah.
There's no blue, there's no red, there's no, well, there's, I guess you would call it maybe green at the bottom of the yellow.
At the same time, that black background really pushes that art forward. Like, it really makes it stand up off of the, almost.
It makes a two-dimensional art piece have a ton of depth. Point blank.
Almost like you just reach into that picture.
But this was a great one. I'm glad you brought this one up again. And again, no pentagrams, no crosses up or down, no burning, no death symbolisms, no morbid symbolism, just thought-provoking art.
Yeah.
This would be one of those that if I never heard the band, the artwork of the name might intrigue me a little bit. It would definitely give me a heavy metal feeling, not necessarily death metal, because, gory font or bloody dripping font or gooey font, however they want to describe this, definitely fits in the heavy metal genre for me.
Yeah.
So
a lot of fans use it. Yeah.
If I was given a choice between this and some other artwork, I would choose this simply because it's very thought provoking. And
it's peaceful to look at too. I've realized that it's very peaceful to look at.
Right, but as it's thought provoking to look at artwork wise, I would imagine the album to be just as deep and thought provoking. Right.
Oh yeah.
So
great song.
It would definitely be a seller to me if I never heard the band.
And this album has a shorter track list, but a slightly longer songs. So there's only 8 tracks on this album. Perfect death metal album with like 6-minute songs and 5-minute songs. Perfect death metal album.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, let's go on to their next one. This one
is their new album.
This one is Boundless Domain.
Wow. I mean, and it looks like, and I described this one to you, what I thought it was, and I took like close-up shots and stuff. So when you look at it, to me, it looks like, when you first look at it, it looks like there's a demon, and he's got long claw fingers and horns, and he's like commanding this vortex over this abyss that could just swallow you, right? And it looks like he's drawing you in, like he's sucking everything in his direction.
Yeah, he does look like he has his hands back to you instead of forward. Right. So it does look like he's drawing rather than casting. I'll definitely give you that without a doubt.
But then when you zoom into it, it's a man with his head leaning back, and the vortex is sucking his skin off of him. And that's what looks like horns and demon hands, but it's not. It's his actual flesh pulling away from his body as he's caught in the vortex,
being distorted.
So thought-provoking, man. It's so cool.
Right. The boundless domain. Boundless to me means you can't hold it. You can't contain it, right? It's boundless. You can't bind it. And to have a domain, we have dominion over this planet and the birds and blah, blah, blah. So boundless domain means I rule all, the entirety of it all, which that to me could go in either direction. Is it a god? Is it a demon?
If you just look at it, it looks like a demon. And then when you zoom in, it's a man. So it could be, this is the devil's realm and he controls this shit. Or it could mean, no, you got to fight to survive this realm, but it's boundless if you can command it.
Yeah, I mean, granted, this is coming from a death metal band, so you would think this is Satan's world kind of thing. But even he plays in the creator's domain on this playground. So which one are they talking about? Again, creates a thought provoking, philosophy, theology, whatever you'd want to call it. And therefore, to me, having never seen or heard Creeping Death, it would sell me in the art aspect pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's really thought provoking, and like I said, in this one too, almost has like a soothing, style. Like, and it may just be all the blurred edges and pastel-esque colors,
Right.
but and then the name is in blood red font, and it still doesn't offend my senses. I can't help but to stare at it. Even that black spot, the abyss there in the middle, I even stare at that because I'm like, what is that telling me? Is there actually something in there? Can I see any eyes in there? I'm just like,
Yeah, to me, the black hole abyss there is the boundless part. It's not up against the edge of a cage. It's not against the glass of an aquarium. It just goes somewhere else out of view is all it does for me, right? So there's no end to where that hole goes to. And then
or maybe he's pulling the realm to back together. Maybe that's actually not coming apart. Maybe he's pulling that shit all back together, like in a sense of like, how you have to like just create your own world here and make your own way and fight and struggle and pull it all. But it keeps wanting to rip open on you every time.
and that brings a great point because you get the bottomless pit, you get a flat land, and then you get all this uprising, right? So life is a struggle to get out of the pit. You get a little reprieve, but then it's an uphill battle. And then as you get
And
to
it's
the
like
top,
it's
it
like that
just
pit. That
fades
pit
out.
never fully closes, right?
Right. But then if you look at the top, it fades out into a soft light, right? So it really is dark is death and the light is the other side. So it's the struggle between the realms in a way, this
Then
is
almost you could look at it like he's ascending to
mhm.
the light, right? Like he's pulling himself out of the the abyss
Well,
that's sucking him down, right?
it is the light that or the upper side that's pulling him apart upward. It's not pushing him down, right?
Oh, because we're so anchored in the darkness of our reality.
Well,
Great point.
we have attachments, right? Your your
Yeah, great point, dude.
your
Great
your
point.
your family or your pet or somebody dies and you have an attachment, you can't let it go. That's him being stuck in that earthly plane. Whereas if you were a spirit, you could go from the bottom to the top and anywhere in between there at will, but because of attachments you're stuck,
Yeah.
or you're in a rut of life. You're doing the same mundane thing, slave to the grind. You're stuck.
It could be the whole barbarism versus enlightenment thing. Like, we're stuck in this barbarous world, but there's constantly enlightenment's constantly trying to pull us to a higher vibrational existence.
Yep. So yeah, to me this is a very thought provoking. And there's another thing I notice about this whole art. On the flatland, you see all these little black marks. To me, those
Right?
would be like trees, or not telephone poles, but probably more like trees, showing that this
Yeah.
is a wide expanse of earth, and these little trees stand out like a small blade of grass in a big freaking field. You know,
Right.
like in an art form, you would draw a couple pieces of grass to say that this is a grass field. You wouldn't draw every blade of grass, so you'd throw in one of these little black lines to make it look like a tree. And then the further you go up the mountain, there's a tree line where no tree grows above that. And that would be kind of that snow cap range, that higher spiritual enlightenment or whatever they were describing here. But in a boundless domain is the territory, the the place in which we exist. The boundless mean there's no saying you can't do that. Your perspective or your indoctrination saying, no, you're not allowed to do that, would be binding, whereas they're trying to tell you, step outside the freaking unlocked cage and go. Right? There is no binding of you except for you binding yourself. You know? So it's a very deep, badass artwork. All right.
One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about 6 Feet Under, Haunted. Now, this album I am familiar with very much. And I am also familiar with Creeping Death. I have listened to plenty of them. Don't get that mistake. I was just simply stating that if I had only seen the art, I would buy it.
Right.
If I would have heard it before the art, I would have fell even deeper in love. Let's just put it that way. So here we are with 6 Feet Under. It's let's start off with just the title of the band. It's a dead connotation, right? 6 feet under, you're in a grave, in a casket, in a dark place, trapped, stuck in terra firma.
And now you're haunted.
That to me could go in either direction. Either
this album art is this is some 90s style stuff here. It's almost like that gnarly stuff, but it's just a very classic metal album cover. You got a skull, and that's it.
This is definitely less is more.
Yeah.
Smaller visual, big impact. Big time. This is a great t-shirt cover. There's not an endless world that stops at the edge of a picture. This one would fade out into the rest of the black shirt.
Right.
So it's very less is more, very deeply impactful. And then you get this little glowing. You get this little glowing in the back of his throat. That's not his red tongue. That's a glowing in his throat. This to me is he's dead, but he still has something to say. There's a bit of life right back here in his vocal cords. So dead, something wants to speak. And that's what is haunting about it, right? That we speak from beyond the grave. That's haunting, Or
and this is a great slab of death metal, traditional old school death metal at a time when
right on the verge of heavy thrash too,
Yeah, and Cannibal Corpse was taking off with the genre at this time. Every band wanted to be Cannibal Corpse. They were blowing up. Everybody was buying them because they were the most grotesque band. When really they weren't. They were the most grotesque mainstream pushed band. You had bands like Broken Hope, which were way more gory, but Cannibal Corpse saw that and they topped it. And they ran with the horror image. Well, Chris Barnes leaves Cannibal Corpse after the Bleeding album, which, in my opinion, the Bleeding album was Cannibal Corpse's best album. That's their best shit. And he brings this out, and everybody's like, well, isn't he in Cannibal Corpse? I'm like, no, he left. This is what he's doing now. And the next, this album and the next two at least were great. And then he's, like every band, they start doing this experimental shit.
Life is a roller coaster.
Yeah, but this is great stuff, man.
Yeah, this one, I believe I heard the band before I saw the cover or knew the name. So this one I was sold on the music before anything else as far as personal experience. But now, if I would have seen this before hearing it, I would have bought it because of that little logo down in the corner.
Yeah.
Straight up, that was a sell. I didn't care what it was. If I saw that, I was grabbing it. Period.
That's what attracted me to my first, I think, Nuclear Assault album. I don't remember if it was Survive or the one before that, but that it's like Nuclear Assault. You got an image of a nuclear radiation bomb going off, and then you have to ask yourself, well, why is there a fucking PMRC sticker on here?
Right.
I'm getting it because they're gonna talk some trash in here.
Speaking of stickers, To you people in the audience, would you like a parental advisory sticker in our merchandise shop? We can make it happen. And then, because that sticker has sold me on more albums than anything, you can put that on a Fisher Price toy, and I'd buy it. And I don't buy Fisher Price toys, but because of that sticker, I would. So let us know in the comments below if you would like a parental advisory decal, and we'll kind of modify it a little bit because I'm pretty sure it's copyrighted to some degree.
Yeah, right.
We'll change the font, maybe change the colors to a deep blue or something, whatever. We'll mess with it a little bit, and we'll let you know in the future if we get that far. But let us know if you're interested in a parental advisory.
Maybe we'll do one for that metal channel as well. By the way, we got a new logo up there. It's pretty cool looking. Dig it.
Yeah. Well done, Mike, on that. Definitely. Nice little piece of art. Good colors. Good font for the logo.
The two skulls on there to represent the two numbskulls on here.
Yeah, it's pretty numb. It's pretty numb. All right, what more can we say about 6 Feet Under, man? Great band, great album cover.
Go get the album. Go listen to the album.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely bang your head to this one. All right, so do we want to go to some of the originators? I believe this was.
Yeah, let's check out some of them, like Gorguts or something, maybe.
Let's see. This one was
Gorefest.
Gorefest. Yep. It's so tiny and grainy, but yeah.
So Gorefest was one of the early originators in the movement when it first was starting up, and they were like in the pack of bands that kind of got overlooked, like Broken Hope. There's a few other ones that I sent you that were originators. Gorguts was another one. Super excellent musicians, great music, great album art, but they just always seem to get looked over,
Right. Well, in this one, artistic style wise, I see a couple of crosses, what looks to be a temple, hand holding a gun, a lock in a lock with the latch system. So it's very thought provoking. You could definitely see there's something on the bottom cross, like an upside down Christ that's cut off with the rest of the cross that's broken off, and looks like it's
I never even noticed that.
Yeah, the one in the bottom, it is Christ with his arms spread out and his head, but then the rest of the body's up here with the ribs, but the cross is broken off and laying behind it. Right? So it's like the toppling of a temple, like vandalism or something thereof, saying, fuck you putting that down my throat. I don't want it. I can respect it, but if you're going to keep throwing it down my throat, I'm going to take it away from you so you can't, in that sense. And then the other cross with the lock on it, we're not allowed to know the truth? We have to listen to you shove it down my throat? Right.
That's exactly what that symbolizes.
Right. And with the temple in the background, you tie it all together, and it quite makes sense. And then you got the hand with the gun, which is resistance, right? The resistance to what you're pushing. So to me, if I would have saw this album minus the name and had those thoughts run through my head, this would have been a sell instantly.
Yeah.
This is a Megadeth to me. If this is what they're portraying on the cover, and this is what the song titles kind of referred to, I'm sold. Yeah. I'm in. I'm all out. I'm on.
And they had a little bit of a different, more accessible sound than a lot of the death metal that was starting. Even though they were in the death metal category, they had a little tinge of industrialism to their music, but nothing like what Fear Factory does or anything like that. It was just these little things that added to their sound. It kind of made them different,
Gave them a little livelier hop in it rather than a darker, more oppressive feel.
They had that Gallup groove. They had a lot of groove to their music, so it wasn't a lot of like super fast blast beats or nothing.
Right.
But they did have blast beats, because we're talking at a time when Napalm Death was coming up and just like trampling everything. And they were the fastest death metal band that existed at the time, and they were just running over. So this band kind of took that hit, and they were like, oh, I'm going to add that, a little bit of that to our sound. And they kind of, I think they may have even went on tour with Napalm Death back in the day, because Napalm Death's been on tour with everybody.
Right. And
So,
when you talk about that blast beat, that hype little thrash, little rhythmy kind of feel, the word that comes to my mind is stampede. It's a big thunderous herd coming at you, but it has a rhythm. It's consistent, one right after the other with an undertone of one in the middle of that. So it's like 3 beats between start and finish of one beat. It really does have a stampede kind of feeling to it in a way.
They have the way their sound is like when you're done listening to it and you transition to another, even let's say a death metal album, you're gonna remember it because you're gonna know how different it sounds right at that moment when you start hearing the traditional death metal, and you're gonna be like, oh, there was something different about those guys. Let me go listen to that again. And that's how it happens, man.
Yeah, that moment that your mind clues into something's different, you want to go back far enough to see where it started, usually at the beginning of the album, and you might not see it until like half a song or a song and a half later. But once you find it, you're like, okay, now I'm on the bus. I could rock with these guys. But until you get that little,
they're a special band, man. They're unique, and they were one of the originators, so they were there in the beginning.
All right. Well, this was a cool one for art wise and stuff, and definitely a band I'm gonna have to delve more into. I'm sure I've heard them a couple of different times. From which album, I'm not sure. Because a lot of times they were on mixtapes for me. And they weren't company produced mixtapes. They were friends collaboration tapes. Little of this, little of that. So there's a lot of stuff on many of them that I've heard. But now that I got YouTube, I can actually look up specifically, and I'll probably come across 1 or 2 of them songs and be like, that's the name of the band or the song, or whatever. So let's go into Broken Hope.
Another one of the originators.
Swamped in gore. Gore doesn't really turn me off. I'm okay with blood and guts and gory things. That's not a deterrent for me. The band name Broken Hope, I've experienced more than enough of that in my lifetime to know I can probably relate with something here.
Yeah.
Artwork wise, this one's,
it's out there.
Well,
you know what it reminds me of? You know what it reminds me of? An Annihilator cover.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing a chessboard.
Yeah. So maybe that's what it is. That Annihilator King of the World album or whatever it is, or whatever.
So to me, there's like a strategic thing going on with the chessboard. You got the 2 little eyes on pegs that are touching the board, both on green dots. My guess, considering they're not both on a black and a green, they're not pawns. But you look at the beast in the background that's pretty much gone, what's left of them, and then you got a ghostly skeleton over there, and then you got let's say a boiled skull down in the bottom front. All right. So there's kind of somewhere something died, and obviously it was a pretty brutal death. And it went off into the spiritual realm, but there's something from beyond that experience that is those eyeballs seeing it or experiencing the afterlife part or something thereof. So it's,
I don't know, for me the artwork doesn't match the title of the album good enough.
Swamped in gore, yeah, it don't fit the title.
And this album art looks like a 15-year-old high school dude drew this.
No, it don't. No, not even close. Not even close. This would be like an early college student, first year semester kind of thing.
Well, okay, maybe so. That's not that much better, but you're thinking about the band is starting out, and this is probably one of the first things that somebody drew for them, and they're like, let's just use this.
Well, I'm going to show you something that somebody under 15 drew before long here, because this has definitely got some artistic flair in it. It's just not cohesive, right? I mean, I could draw a story of this, but what the hell is it trying to tell me? And it don't fit swamped in gore, right? There's
Right.
many different descriptions of what could be gory, and you could overwhelm me with that in the cover art. But it's not. There's only a few simple things. So I'm not overwhelmed, therefore I'm not swamped, right? So like you
Their
said,
second album, I forget the title of it, but it looks like it should have been the cover of this one because it is gory,
right,
guts and intestines and all kinds of stuff everywhere, and it's a sketch drawing. They didn't color it.
right.
They like left it just a just a pencil drawing almost.
Speaking of, Broken Hope, I'm pretty sure I haven't heard this one. So I'll definitely have to go check this one out.
Some of the lowest guttural vocals in the beginning of death metal, like they were the lowest one.
All right. So remember I said I could show you something that was drawn by somebody way under 15? Arcane. Ambiguity. Now,
Yeah.
if this is a cover art for something that's in the metal section at the store, I'm going to think somebody put it there from a different section.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think of, I mean, Arcane I know to be magic, mystical, you know. The band name looks cool, but it don't fit anything else. Ambiguity being the title of the album, obviously that's just a typewriter font or something thereof. But everything, nothing, it just seems odd. But here we get the four people have a cross. So is this a Christian metal? Because they're not upside down, right? So
maybe.
So this one to me is kind of confusing. And I threw.
Here's the question. All right. So not knowing, not ever heard this band, if you saw this cover, would you buy it?
9 out of 10.
It's giving you the opposite polarity of what we were just talking about, seeing the satanic imagery and the anti-Christian imagery. Being that it's pro-Christian, would it affect your purchase? Because maybe you don't want to hear spiritual music, or maybe you don't buy gospel style music.
I think I already answered the question by saying I think somebody misplaced this one in the wrong category. that in and of itself is me saying, yeah, no, I probably wouldn't buy it. I might happen to look at the back to see what the songs are, to see if they match the title of the band, Arcane, if they're talking about magic and mystery type of thing. I might overlook the cover to give it a shot, but I guarantee you, if I'm seeing this at a record store where I have a lot of other choices, this is not coming home with me. Just because. All right, now we're going to go into another child's art to see if this would do the same thing that we just saw. Key Dragon, drink from the waters of war. Now that's a child's art, but this is probably more your teenager, 19-year-old. They have the ideas, but they're not really that great at rendering them.
First of all, let me just say one thing about this right now. This is the greatest piece of art I've ever seen. No, if they would have gotten away with the yellow ominous sky if they hadn't have painted the foreground yellow where the title is.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting choices. I mean, my brain can pick out a lot in this, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, they messed up the effect of the artwork by doing that yellow in the bottom. And to my eye keeps going to that bottom yellow, and it doesn't want to see what the picture is.
I mean, how much would you have, as a band, put out as a budget for artwork?
Well, I definitely would have spent more than this band did.
That was our whole earnings at the first show, man.
Hey, I don't care. Go cut some grass or something.
Yeah, something's got to give here. I mean,
Yeah.
let's give them props. They got an album out. That's more than
Hey,
I
they
can
got me
say
out
about
more
myself.
than I've ever done.
Yeah, they're a step further than I've ever got. You know? But yeah, this one's
About a half a step. I've recorded music. I've just never put it out.
you know, this looks like stuff that I found in, well, not found, but added into my notebooks in school. You
Yeah.
know, I've done the little pirate ships, I've done the sea monsters, I've done plenty of castles, plenty of dragons. You know, there's some symbology going on here, but I don't think the artist knew what they wanted. You know, they had an idea, they just didn't have an idea of how to get there, maybe,
I
whichever.
think they went into the kitchen and took their fifth grade brother's art project off the fridge and Xeroxed it.
Now, just judging by the band name and the title of the album, would you think this might fall into like an older school traditional metal, power metal nowadays?
Just looking at the art, yeah, that's probably what I would think. Probably traditional metal, because I mean,
Like a
power
low
metal
per,
because it's got the dragon, so maybe power metal.
well,
But you know,
I'm thinking if they got this limited of a budget on the album cover, they also got this limited of a budget in the production of it. So it's going to sound garage band, raw, you know, no clean reverb, no
which
processing
is
over
good.
it.
That's good if it fits the band and it's the style you're looking for.
Right. But
Yeah,
I mean,
that punk kind of has that style. It's never overproduced. Well, you got Green Day, but that I wouldn't even call them punk.
yeah, they were more alternative.
Maybe
They
their first two albums, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah,
But this one to me kind of gives me that you know, first band's album, really raw, low dollar production, but probably in the power metal category rather than in the thrash metal, speed metal, death metal by any means. You know,
I
it
would even say that they may not even be successfully into the power metal genre, but walking the line between that and traditional heavy metal. I get a early Judas Priest kind of mixed with maybe some Saxon and some Iron Maiden lyrics. It's kind of the feel I'm getting.
yeah, I'm thinking you can probably say they were raised on a little bit of Black Sabbath with some Deep Purple kind of feel,
Yeah.
inspirationally. I
Oh,
might have to.
there's definitely probably some keyboards in there.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check this one out just to get an impression,
Yeah.
because this is not one I've ever heard, and until today, I never even heard of.
Yeah, me either.
So I'm gonna dip into this one just for shits and giggles, like I did with the Shanna thing. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I might even throw it, depending on how it sounds. I might throw it in the check it out. If
Well, I
it's
got my answer. All I got to do is watch and see.
well, that's the thing, right? In the check it out thing, when we see something like this, we take a chance, we check it out, win or lose. You know, it's all open to subjective opinion. I might actually like it, you
Right,
might not. I might not like it, you might. I don't know. And what we could do
right.
is check it out and see if it's better than the album art. You know. All right, so let's go on to another originator,
Ooh,
Pestilence, Consuming Impulse.
great album, great band, great album title, great album art. I mean, this when I saw this for the first time, it reminded me of the Exodus album, where they were like all in there was like insects everywhere on the cover of it. I don't remember which one it was, but it's like, okay, it's very, very simple, right? It's a man being eaten alive by ants.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is close your freaking mouth, man.
Yeah, but he's in pain, so he's screaming. He can't help it.
I agree. I agree, man. You get bit by one ant and the rest are around, you produce pheromones, they're all biting you. This would be hell. Straight up hell. You know,
especially if you're like, captured in a jungle and they fucking tied your ass to a tree or stakes or something and just let the fucking ants eat you.
Oh God. In the gore metal sense, the blood and the violence and the guts and stuff doesn't bother me at all. But this is fear invoking.
It's very anxiety ridden, right? Like,
very.
Fuck, I want to be that dude.
Yeah, this is definitely not desirable by any means. It would definitely be frightening. I mean,
and here again is another example of aggressive artwork, but still in that non-offensive realm, right?
Yeah, and the less is more. I mean, you could have had 5 ants on them. It still would have provoked about the same thing, but to have a shit ton of them, I mean, it's ant on ant on ant. It's just one thing. It's millions of them, but it's just one thing. And a simple person screaming, that's 2 things. Very less is more,
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine
the
the rest of the t-shirt having covered with ants, all your shoulder, your back, everything, but just this face sticking out.
I used to have that shirt. Do you remember the shirt you could get at Spencer's that was a skull covered with maggots and they were over the whole shirt? Yeah, I had that shirt. But this one, Pestilence, so you got the name Pestilence, which is death,
right.
And consuming impulse, right?
Yep.
So we get the consuming part. Is the impulse on the part of the ants? Is that the ants that he's talking about, having that consuming impulse, like something wild, uncontrollable hunger will just devour you if it catches you?
Well, in that sense, I think the consuming impulse is the fight to survive animal instinct that we have. When you're under threat, you do everything in your power to fight, right? You don't flight, you fight. And like I said,
the consuming impulse here would be fight for your life.
Well, like I said, when you get bit by an ant, if you produce that pheromone that draws the rest of the ants, they will be all consuming of whatever that threat is, right?
Yeah.
And they don't care. Now, where did the impulse play into that? Was it that fight for survival, or was it that try to wipe them off, get the fuck away, no shit, and then you're overwhelmed with fear, because fear is also an impulsive design. And when it's consuming, it's the only thing left right now is fear, So, so which direction is it? Is it both of them? Yeah, again, wide open topic that's very thought provoking in and of itself,
Another super great technical death metal band from the early era when most bands were not really into that technical stuff yet. You had Death, and even the band Death didn't really progress into the technical arena and for their first 4 or 5 albums.
Right.
And first couple, because by the time Individual Thought Patterns, they were already in it. Symbolic and Individual Thought Patterns, they were already in that technical progression. So, but this band was always like this. They were always that way. This is the first album I heard from them. I don't even know if they have one before this. But this was definitely in my collection, and I loved this album. And this is another one that I would put on when I wanted to draw. It just had this
art-inspiring
feel. It just had this feel to it that reminded me of Megadeth's style. And like I said on the other show, like Megadeth was real inspiring to me when I would draw and I would listen to them, you know.
All right. Well, as far as would I buy it, would I walk away from it? Artwork wise, I probably would be afraid to touch it. Maybe they got ants in the cover. I don't know. Band name, band name alone, Pestilence. As a heavy metal, thrash, death metal kind of guy, I would probably pick it up. You know, let's just say I'm only looking at the heavy metal selection at the store, right? And I come across this one. The vibrant green might sell me on it just because it would stand out in my other collection. I could easily know where it's at in my selection. The consuming impulse part of it, I could definitely see that being as a message that I would grab onto and kind of want to know more. Art wise, band wise, the whole thing, if I just picked it up and looked at it, you know, but this isn't one of those you only get to buy one. This is one of those you're shopping for albums. You can buy 1,000 of them, throw it in your cart. Would I put this in my cart? Yes, definitely yes.
Well, I lived this experience here that we're discussing. So when I bought this album, I'd never heard of the band and I'd never seen their albums. I'd never heard their music, but I was in a death metal section in Renaissance Records in Killeen, Texas, and I was already had a stack of CDs in my hand.
And this one was added to it.
I saw this one. I immediately picked it up. It was actually on sale, like a clearance thing for like $8.99.
Lucky dog.
I remembered the band. I guess I remembered the band being in existence, but you know, it was like one of them passing things. I may have seen it, but I had never owned a Pestilence album. I'd never heard their music. I picked it up, brought it home. Instant classic, one of my all-time favorites. I mean, I have so many all-time favorites. I just have to. I used to just have to keep a list because it was like I don't have one. There's no way I could have one, man.
Favoritism.
Like even if you ask me what's the one heavy metal band, I might just right away pop off and say Metallica, just because that's ingrained in me and I grew up on them guys. But
given a second thought, it would be a million different ones. Yes.
Yeah, heavy metals is lays, man.
Yeah, for me,
just have one.
For me, just one. I find favoritism to be a very, very bad word, right?
Yeah, I want as many as I can get.
The problem I have is if you can ask me what is your one favorite band, right? That means I got to throw away 100,000 other bands.
Yeah.
That can only get second, third, fourth, fifth on down the line. I can't do that to those that might be the favorite band in a situation. Right? So like when we were talking about, you know, like 5 albums on a deserted island. I'm really glad we came up with the idea that you don't get to bring the tapes. You got to dig them out of the sand, and they're loaded with the albums everywhere. You know, so you find one, it's not what I want to listen to. You can dig up another one. You know, that's a much better island to be deserted on. I'm up for that. That sounds fun. You know, but to have to pick 5 and say, "Oh man, I had to leave that at home," that just don't feel right. You know.
Hey, hang on, man. Hang on. I got an email coming in.
All right.
Oh, the dude's in trouble again, y'all. Pickles, bro. Just got an email from Pickles, and he's in jail again. He was arrested at Bloodstock Fest.
You don't say.
Yeah, it's actually an email from the Pussycats, and they got him. They said they got to go get him in the morning.
Well, at least he'll be out overnight. At least he'll be out overnight. You know, you'll get 3 hots in the cot. And, you know.
Dude, last time when, you know, he was at Wacken, they said they arrested him for pissing on people. Like he was literally pissing on people and hitting people with beer bottles. So who in the hell knows what he done now?
You know, that's only Pickles, if I'm counting right, that's his 18th defecation charge.
Yeah, probably. And also when he emailed me and told me he was going to Bloodstock, he said he got an inside track on some tickets and he was going to be bootlegging tickets outside of Bloodstock. And so, man, who knows? He might have not even ever made it into the show.
Well, you gotta love the cat. You know, he's helping people get into the show to enjoy music, which is what his true passion is. So
I don't know, man. It sounds like he's just as soon help you as he would piss on you.
well, I mean, hey, if your bladder's full and I'm standing next to you and you lift a leg, hell, you know, maybe I won't smack you, but you know, maybe let me borrow a new clean pair of jeans or something. You know,
Crazy damn cat.
maybe swap me with your fucking Old Spice swagger or whatever the hell that cat's got wearing. You know,
Yeah,
I
he's
will
not.
admit he smells good. You know, you can smell him from like 4 miles away. He wears that
Hey,
much.
I'm glad to know him. I'm glad to know him, man. It makes
Yeah,
my life richer.
I mean, think of it. Wouldn't you be honored to be pissed on by Pickles?
We've
Not
actually
every,
had that
not
conversation, and I
everybody's
told
gonna.
him the next time he did it, and I was going to punch him right square between the eyes. No, he is not allowed to do that.
Well, there's a difference between an at-home party with Pickles and an event party with Pickles. If I'm at
Yeah,
an event party like Walk-In or Bloodstock or any of the others, and he pisses on me, I'm gonna feel like honored because I'm one in however many hundreds of thousands, you know, and there's
I live
only gonna be a
vicariously.
few of them.
I live vicariously through Pickles, and but I tell you what, that me and that dude almost come to blows a couple times, and that whole pissing on the leg thing now, and that's probably what he was doing. I ain't down with that shit. I
Well,
ain't gonna put up with it. He knows it too.
well, he knows I ain't his territory. He knows
Yeah,
that much.
you know, I kind of live vicariously through him. He's out there doing it, man. He's living it.
Well, that's cool. So, is he going to have charges and have to go back for court someday, or is he just going to have his lawyers take care of it?
You know how it is, man. They just pay people off these days.
Yeah, he's got the funds to just say, yeah, get me the fuck out of here. No,
Yeah,
knowing
it
our
amazes
luck.
me. You can go. It amazes me that you can go riot, but a cat can't go have fun at a metal show and do whatever the fuck he wants. You go riot and they don't even arrest you; they just turn you loose.
You know, I almost guarantee you by the time he's out of jail, within 24 hours of now, we're probably going to have 3 more subscribers from the jailhouse. So it works out good for us.
You know, I tried to tell him to have the Pussycats do the filming for him. He tries to record with his iPhone, and all you end up seeing is like just moshing going on. You never see the
Yeah,
bands.
yeah, I get
Music,
very
and then
dizzy
he tries
watching
to
his
send
shit.
it to me in an email. You can't even see it.
Yeah, I mean you can hear it, but visually, yeah, I gotta close my eyes because it'll make me dizzy. It's
I mean, how many
nonstop
times does
moving.
he hit the damn ground, man? Like, if you can't mosh stay out of the pit, cat.
Yeah, him and the death wall didn't survive too well either.
He's so short. He's
Yeah,
so short. No one sees him, dude. They just run him over.
yeah, he gets a knee to the face every week at least.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he's so damn angry all the time.
It might be. It might be. But yeah, you gotta love Pickles, man. He's a good cat. It's a bummer that he's always in trouble, but then again, when you're Pickles, it's par for course.
Yeah, man. He left. He definitely lives it, brother.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks for the update on the Pickles, man. It's always good to know what he's up to and where he's at.
Yeah, it's entertaining for me, man. Never know what's going to happen next.
And I know roughly where he's at, so I'll take a look on the calendar and see if I can figure out maybe where he's headed next. And if I can get you an update before he gets there, maybe you can meet him. Get to see
Yeah,
Pickles in person. Might not be fun.
I've met him, dude. You just got to watch him. He's one of those dudes, like, you're glad you know him, but you keep your distance.
Yeah. Yeah, you know if he's getting in trouble nonstop, you're going to get down with that too. All right, well,
So what do we have here?
this here is old school DSI.
Oh, I never heard of that band.
This is
Oh,
the old Medallion cover. I believe it's Medallion cover. I'm not sure.
that's the first album.
They didn't actually have a uh, album
No album
name.
title.
It was
No, just
just
DSI.
self-titled, which is why I call it the Medallion album, because to me this is a medallion. But it's not very descript. Just looking at it, first impressions in the heavy metal section, the name looks cool, the font looks cool. It leaves a lot to the imagination. I would throw it in the cart. I would buy it.
Yeah, it doesn't really have any of the negative connotation as far as like you can't really see an upside down cross or a pentagram, even though that amulet looks dark and brooding and but then you're left with the name of the band, which they could just put it on a black album cover and put the name right in the center, and that's enough to scare me, man.
Yeah,
But not scare me, but scare me away. But Deicide is one of those bands. Again, if you've never heard of them and you've never seen that cover art, and you just listen to their music, you'd probably like the band.
Brutal death metal, straight
awesome,
up brutal death metal. Yep.
And very very unatmospheric, very mid-dropped sound. Yeah, it's great. But you gotta think.
The only thing missing from this album cover is the hoop that goes around the bottom to be a door knocker.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that just came to mind. Technically, I mean, there's a few other thoughts I have, but to me, it looks like a dresser knob or a freaking a door knocker thing.
Once again, great technical death metal, but like I said, you could just put that name in the center of the album with no artwork. And if you don't know what deicide means, not you, Ryan, I know you do, but the viewers may not know what deicide means. It's the
killing of God,
homicide of a deity.
Yep.
And in this case, he's speaking of Jesus.
Yep.
And so that automatically, at a young age, turned me off. Like I said, even just seeing the name on the tape, I was like, oh, well, I know what that means because I grew up in the church and I knew it's not hard to figure out what that word means.
Right. So yeah, this is one of those, if you don't know what the word means and you saw it, and you're heavy metal and you're in the heavy metal section, I don't think this would turn off many people.
Right.
But once they find out what it means
and read the lyrics,
it might take them a few years to get to that conscious understanding of, yeah, this is a little far down the rabbit hole for me. I want to climb up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go back into thrash metal for a while, kind of stay on the outskirts of death metal because you're a little sketchy out at the moment or something. But yet,
I was there.
Yeah. But once you've had that experience with Deicide and you've heard them, you will always recall back to them of they were definitely an envelope pusher. You know, there's definitely some parts of them that in any of your top 20 heavy metal, death metal lists, this name shows up. You know, they're iconic. They're historical. Let's just put it that way, right? So even if you got into them, found out, and then shied away, you still hold this little place for them that says, yeah, I want to just jam out to it. Don't show me the cover. Just let me hear the sound. You know what I mean?
Well, even if it's just a respect that you hold for them, just because those some brutal motherfuckers, and if it was ever a throwdown, they could kick some ass. It's like comparing musicianship bands, like Deicide they're just excellent musicians.
Okay, here's a good example. Let's say you were at Bloodstock with Pickles, right? And he's kept you awake for the last 4 fucking days. You're about ready to just pass out, but you're still going. The show just ends. You got this little intermediate thing. You thought about going to take a nap, right? And Pickles is like, fine, whatever, so be it. Do your thing, whatever. He gives you a little freedom to go do that. Deicide comes on stage. Do you stay and listen to Deicide, or do you finally go take your nap and pass out after 4 days?
No, I stay and listen because you know that that's part of the whole experience. If I was at a festival like that, no, I stay. I stay. I watch as many bands as I can. I don't care. I want to experience it
Right.
because I want to see. I want to see it. I want to see the spectacle.
All right. So that's a good way to look at things because obviously you paid money to go to a show. It don't matter how freaking wore out and tired you are if you can stand there and listen, even if you're not paying attention because your brain ain't working. you know. So I
Right.
mean, to choose to stick it out and keep listening, knowing that there's an even heavier, better band coming afterwards because it's not the end of the night yet.
Right.
Do you take your chance to get some rest now so you can see the later show, or do you already know that at any point I pass out, I lose the rest of the shows entirely because I
Yeah,
ain't waking back up?
well, I mean, without all the parameters, I still say I watch the whole show. If I'm going, I want to see the entire spectacle. I don't want to miss any of the experience of it.
Right. Yeah. And
Like I said, I went and saw Morbid Angel in a little 300 person club down here in Austin, Texas, back in the day. On this tour right here, the Covenant tour, and dude, they freaking rocked. But you can clearly see here we are again with you have the name Morbid Angel, which is an angel who is a morbid angel, which
isn't pure and loving and
well, it
caring and
connotes
providing
kind of connotes that they have no problem doing evil things, right?
the dark
And
side.
so, and you have this type of black magic pentagram here that has the inverted cross, the pentagram, and
The
I don't know what
symbolisms. The
it's a
symbolisms.
certain right. It's a certain type. This is a certain type of black magic pentagram, and he has it. It's also in the name of the band as well. And so what you're looking at here is he's got his books of black magic out that he wants to cast a spell, or maybe he wants to possess a human being, or maybe he wants to bring in himself some more power, right? So
What would
you've
the
got the
word
dagger, you've got the quill and ink, and you've got the candle,
would the
and then the
word
book
you're
that
looking
says
for
covenant.
would the word you're looking for be sigil?
Right. I guess you'd say that.
Because it's a symbol that creates a spell.
Right. And then you have the book with the title of the album on the book, Covenant, which implies also this is the book of the
Contract.
covenant,
A
and
contract.
this is my black magic covenant, right?
hmm
So it's very, very, very brooding album cover, man.
Well, right off the bat, you already know what I'm going to say. I bought it because of the parental advisory. Irrelevant. Secondly, I bought it because I do like magic and mystery, and I don't care if it's white or dark magic. To me, it's irrelevant. Magic is
And
magic.
I kind of agree on that. I fall in that same line because the first time I heard this was, remember I was telling you like how Headbangers Ball in the 90s did that last hour was like extreme metal, right?
Right.
And I heard this when this album came out, the very first song off of it, they had a video for it. I heard it, and it was very shortly after that I owned this album because it left such an impact on me. And like you said, put put three things in a situation together, and you got a memory.
Yep.
And it was the first time it was on Headbangers Ball. It was the first time I had ever heard it, and it was the first time death metal was being played on television. Period. And put it
It
all
rocked
together,
your world. It rocked your
and
world.
I didn't give a fuck that it had that symbol on it when I went and happily paid my money.
Right.
So, as I once said before, we're all hypocrites, man.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? You buy this album, and then because this is the style that you're into, the direction you want to go with your musical taste. So you buy the album. Years later, you have epiphanies or
Yeah,
thoughts or things that come to mind where you're like, man, I was in a bad spot back then. No, you weren't. You were where you belong, doing what you were doing, because without it, you wouldn't have that thought right now that made you
right.
think that was bad, which it wasn't, because that's what got you here, right?
But that whole thought later in life, because you thinking it might be bad, thinking it's, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that, or I shouldn't listen to that music. But that's only because of societal pressures and ideologies, right?
Right, right.
Because you've been force fed certain ideologies from birth, and it's ingrained in you, and it really is like mental fuckery,
Well,
because it makes it hard for you as an adult when you harken back to the good old days, and then you have that whole religious ideology thing that was ingrained in you all along the way, and it's a freaking inner battle constantly back and forth.
big
And man,
time.
it's emotional damage, bro.
Emotional damage, he says. you know,
It is.
you know, for me, uh, Headbangers Ball, with the stuff that I remember from back then, I can remember a few different episodes and nights. I want to say it was right around the exact same time and place where I learned about and started watching Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Yeah.
It would have been just before Creep Show came out, Tales from the Crypt, right? So
Yeah.
seeing that dark, that mystique, even the witchcraftery tonation stuff, right? Seeing an album cover like this would have been an instant sell for me. I'd have bought it in a hurry, right?
Mm.
Just because it all had this same arcana kind of vibe to it, right? And like I was saying with the magic thing, I don't care if it's dark or light or whatever, it's this, if you can understand what they call magic, which was actually a manipulation of time and space and elements, that in and of itself is what my life has kind of followed a path around, right? How can I get this to transmutate or alchemy into the desired outcome, right? Situations, people, places, things, outcomes, whatever, right? That's kind of where magic kind of had its little, if I put this little sprinkle of this on there, can I keep this from happening while I put a dose of this over here and get that to happen, right? And it don't matter if it's black or white. You kind of need yin yang to work it all together. So I never really had any bad feeling towards witchcraftery or warlockism or any of that kind of stuff. And growing up with these metal bands portraying these names just made it all kind of second nature, no fight or flight response, just kind of embracing, you
It
know.
all fit together. Yeah.
Yeah, so to me, showing me an album cover like this with never heard Morbid Angel before, I'd have bought it in a hurry. Now, if you would have played the music without showing me the name or the cover, I probably would have definitely bought it without a doubt. you know, so I do know Morbid Angel for sure. I mean, I've been around long enough to know these guys fucking rock big
Yeah.
time. But this again, like you were saying, there's an image being portrayed. Does it turn you off or does it turn you on, or is it kind of a mute point neutral? And
For me, it turned me off, but I still bought it.
I think as a younger person, let's say maybe 22 and under, your brain isn't got all these philosophies yet. They got their stuff that they're working their direction towards, but they ain't old enough to have that maturity level of this is a no and this is a yes, right? They haven't quite figured that out. And then you get peer pressure, my friends are into it, so I want to be liked, so I'm going to get into it. And this isn't my thing, but they're doing it and I'm going to do it. I'm going to man up and do it. Yeah, that's not a man. That's a fucking people pleasing pussy. That's what that is. So
The follower.
yeah. So this to me was definitely one of those that having heard the music, I followed, I enjoyed, I like, and I can still put in my playlist today, without a doubt, regardless of what's on their cover, the pentagrams, the crosses, the magic, whatever. None of that is relevant to me because I know the band now enough to know that they will definitely be around for me. So this one was a good one. To me, it's not satanic or the fight against good or evil. It's just good shit, man. All right, so I'm gonna pull up one of mine from my childhood, and this one I definitely seen the cassette album cover all the way home before I heard it. And again, this was from a music store, so it was in the heavy metal section, and I had to grab it because this is kind of what my notebooks were full of when I was sketching and drawing at a young age. I would say 13, 14, right around that age. I was drawing helmets based very similar to this. And when I saw that thing coming out of the ground, I didn't realize it was coming out of a city. I thought it was just the ground. My older self looks at it and I can see a city underneath, right?
Right.
This thing is massive. And that would be my very opinion of what this album was when I was growing up. The
What's this
name,
band?
Armored Saint.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. So to me, an armored saint would be like a paladin, you know, a knight in armor, but for the good side, a saint,
Right.
right? But you're wearing armor to protect yourself. That to me had no good or bad feeling to it. But when you look at that letter S with all the little curvies in it, you wouldn't believe how many of my notebooks have that letter S written just like that. And even some of my schoolwork has that letter S on a capital S.
Mhm.
I would waste 20 minutes in class drawing the letter S just to write a fucking sentence to hand in my homework.
Damn. Yeah,
Yeah.
Armored Saints is a great band. I've always been into them. They were one of the bands that I always kept in my back pocket, like when you jamming Metallica and you might mix in some Faith No More, throwing a little Suicidals, and next thing you're listening to Armored Saint. And that's how we jammed. We weren't really prejudiced against nobody's music. Whatever, we were happy people brought extra music, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Of
And
course,
just
we were collectors ourselves, but it's always good to have other people's stuff.
and just as a little side note for those that are familiar with Armored Saint, Category 7 is out now, and you can march out to the modern day Armored Saint. It's not Armored Saint, but it is John Bush.
John Bush and Phil? Oh, what's his name? The lead
from
singer from Machine Head,
yeah, and Suicidal Tendencies, and
guitar player from Suicidal Tendencies, and I don't know
it's
what
an
his
all
name.
star cast. Let's just put it that way. It's an
Yeah, it's
all
a
star
super group.
cast. Yeah, but yeah,
Definitely a super group. And
they're
if you like heavy metal, like real roots heavy metal, you're gonna love Category 7.
yeah, it's very reminiscent of Armored Saint. If you know many
Yep.
of their albums, they've been around a long time. I think they're on like 12, maybe 11 or 12 albums,
Yeah,
something like
like
that.
that. They got a good discography.
I almost pulled out March of the Saints as far as artwork wise, but Raising Fear was the one that I remember first in my collection. So
Yeah.
I have both of them and a few others, but this was definitely one that it wasn't about the artwork to me other than the helmet thing. Because like I said, I was drawing helmets before I got this album. You know, there was just something about that medieval mask and helmet thing. And I don't even know how much TV I saw with the medieval knights in armor, but man, it had definitely passed live. Let's just go with that one. you know. So anyway, this was just one of my favorite albums. A very good artwork that definitely left an impression on me. It doesn't like speak artistically to me, but I don't know, man. If I had, like I had said, I was standing at the record store and bought this album, never fucking heard it, and stared at this cover all the way home until I could put it in that freaking tape player, and I was not disappointed at all. At all. I was happy, So yeah, this
Yeah.
this was definitely one of them good ones.
Definitely one of my favorite metal bands of all time there.
All right, so now I'm gonna pull up another artistically inspired cover, Halloween, Keeper of the Seven Keys. Now, there's part 1 and part 2, and I couldn't really decide which one I wanted because they're very similar in what's being shown, but part 2 is a lot more detail oriented, let's say. A lot more little trinketries in it. But this one, it would have sold me in an instant. But I had already known Halloween at this point when part 1 came
I bought it. I bought it, but like I said, I had already heard, Halloween and through my friends. And is this part 1 or part 2?
This is part 2, Keeper of the Seven
Okay,
Keys.
so this is the one I bought, and this is the one that I wanted.
Part 1 has the guy in the red cape with the stellar face,
And this is the one that had I Want Out.
Yep.
Yeah. So I saw that video and decided I was going to go buy a Halloween album. Now, if you know Halloween, I Want Out was a pretty fairly tame song for them.
It was more of their MTV radio play sound.
Yeah, because they're pretty thrashed out and they rock it.
Definitely. I mean, when you got 3 guitarists, a bass player, a drummer with a massive freaking drum set, and then you get the vocal pipes of Michael Kiske, holy fuck, dude. That's all I can say,
Great power metal band, and some might even say the originators of the genre. Not the originators, but the first true band to be called power metal.
Yeah, they definitely have that sound, again, like I was saying, with like a higher vocal, a little bit of a keyboard feeling influenced into it, which definitely gives it that what you would call power metal genre. But yeah, this to me was definitely good shit.
I always loved the attitude of this band. They all just had this "we're going for it" attitude. They love to have fun, and a lot of the bands from overseas were kind of like that. They were so happy to be touring around the world, and they finally freaking made it, and they're doing this great new thing. It was a wonderful time to be alive, man.
Definitely. And again, this is another band that's probably got 14, 15 albums out there, if not more.
Yeah.
They've been around a long time. I think they're still out there, even though I know Kiske is doing other things like with Avantasia. He's doing it with Amanda Somerville. He's got a couple of other bands, a Gamma Ray that he hangs out with, which are actually
great.
Gamma Ray is actually members of Halloween, So
and so is Ed Guy, like them too. And man, there's so many great power metal bands.
Yeah, and so vocally, Michael Kiske is the number one vocalist sound I try to aspire to. And just higher than that, and I mean just higher than that, is Rob Halford.
Huh.
When you can get clean diction and solid consonants when you're trying to hang on vowels, those two guys, the way they sing, that's my style. That's what I want to sing like. Right? That's not always what I want to hear when I'm jamming out, but that is the sound I want to put out there when I'm singing. I just don't quite have the voice for it. It sounds like it in my head. It don't sound like it on the microphone. I can tell you that. Let's put it there. But artistically, right here, the guy in the robe holding the key is trying to lock up the 7 C's of hatred and despair and anger and these bad things. And the green is the one that's trying to stop him from doing it because fight for survival, right? That natural instinct kicks in. It's like, no, you're going to lock us up, but what world do you want to live in? A better world, obviously, like the song Future World, full of love and peace. Yeah, we would love that, but those powers that be over there on Rust and Peace album ain't going to let that happen. It's just not going to happen. So I mean, this one I could go very deep into a lot of what I see, but that's the main gist of it, right? It's a battle of good and evil, but there is no crosses, there is no pentagrams, but it's still
Right.
talking of that. I would say more spiritual battle because you got these two little ghostly faces in the water, right? And then you get this green or orange land and then this black land. That's two different lands that are fighting against each other, two different kingdoms, if you will, or domains. And then you got this world off to the side that's really bright, really big mammoth mountain over there. So you know it's a big world over there. To me, it's a great album. It's a great artwork. If I had never heard of Halloween before and this was the first album you showed me, I couldn't wait to pull it out of the cover and fucking jam out to it.
Yep.
Straight up.
Great stuff.
Yeah. So let's go into some Viking metal, if you will. Brothers of Metal, Prophecy of Ragnarok. Now, the term Ragnarok, is it a person? Is it an entity? Or is it a situation? In all the freaking movies and stories that I've heard, Ragnarok isn't a person, even though there's been a few characters named Ragnarok. Like I believe it was the Avengers or the X-Men or something like that, with the Hulk and all them guys that were trying to stop the world from ending because it was Ragnarok. And Ragnarok was the apocalypse of the universe kind of thing. You know. So is it a situation or is it a being? You know?
Hmm.
So for me to see this album cover, the red, you can see there's a dragon tail in there. You can see this big being entity, let's call it, because it's bigger than the land, you know. So there's something intense going on here, right? You get the lightning, so I'm thinking maybe Zeus, but I don't think it's Zeus because Thor was the god of thunder. So it really inspires Norse mythology kind of thoughts, the Viking stuff, the Celtic stuff. So it you really got to know some of that in order to draw conclusions of which is which in here, but it's another one of those thought provoking images. So what does it speak to you?
It looks like Clash of the Titans. Looks like what is the Prometheus? Is it Prometheus? Maybe that's the god that was the main god over the land in Clash of the Titans, right?
In Clash of the Titans?
Yeah. He reminds me of that one, the main god, because the father god, they were larger than their offspring.
Right.
Right? So the offspring were still gods or demigods, but they had powers still, but they were smaller than their predecessors, than their parents. Maybe it's Eclipses or something like that. I don't remember, man. But looks to me like he's pissed, and someone has created a situation where he's got to come deal with it.
Yeah. Ragnarok would definitely be you fucked up. It's my turn.
Yeah,
You know.
I'm gonna fix this shit that you fucked up.
Yeah, you want to fucking kill each other and the land? Let me just come down and put an end to this shit because I ain't watching.
Yeah.
You know. So is this a buy or no buy for you based
Well,
on
now,
cover?
having never heard what it is, I wouldn't have a problem purchasing this album. Now, I may just be disappointed, but that's the give and take of buying stuff that you don't know. Well, it definitely doesn't offend me. I don't see any kind of hatred or like
Symbolism
right.
of,
There's no symbolism.
and let's just use the word symbolism as in pentagrams and crosses, right? to sell you one direction or the other of a spiritual battle. Let's just call that in the symbolism, because there's plenty of
Definitely Norse
symbolism in here.
inspired. Yeah, it's definitely Norse inspired gods. And
Is the
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
is the Norse Viking thing something that if you found in metal, we know there's a term of, or a genre of Viking metal, right? So
Right.
is seeing this thinking, okay, Ragnarok, that's Vikings. There might be a little Celtic up there on the M. You know, it's got some little scripting on the M. Yeah,
Right.
I can see this is, let's call it Viking metal. But what level of Viking metal? You know what I mean? Is it
Or
down
is
here
it,
in the pop rock, or is it up here in the thrash or death
well,
metal?
is it Viking metal imagery, but a power metal band?
Yeah,
Right.
see, that's what I'm trying to get you to figure out, is to where would it land? You know?
Right. And not ever having heard them, I really couldn't call it. But if I was going to walk into a store and I saw that and I was like, hey, that's interesting, and I decided to buy it, I would already have decided this is probably power metal, not thinking about Viking metal, right? Because I'm
Right.
just not, and it's a fairly newish genre, Viking
Yeah,
metal.
I would give that about 6 years, maybe 8 years
Yeah.
old, give or take, maybe a little longer.
And if I, like I said, if I walked in the store, saw it, I wouldn't have no problem buying that. The artwork's cool. I think it totally looks metal. Um, and fuck yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw two band names out at you that this band is very similar to. One I know for a fact you know, and the other one is more of a reference in the sense of what kind of metal. Tyr, Viking metal. Very fast, very heavy, very groove oriented, easy to hear and listen to lyrics, right? Very kind of thrash metal ish, right? On Tyr. I mean, there's some stuff that's pretty riffing bad, you know. But
Yeah.
the
I
other
didn't
band,
have a problem with Tyr. I liked them.
but again, Viking metal, right? I mean, how else do you class them? Viking metal, power metal, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah.
Both albums are both playlists in my book. The other band is more of a reference, kind of within the sound range, but more Norse like, Sabaton. Now, I know you're familiar with Sabaton. I don't know how much of it you've listened to. It's
I, I've listened to quite a bit of Sabaton actually, just because every time I see their moniker, it intrigues me.
all
And
right.
I
Well,
want to click on their video, you know.
I know you like to watch a lot of documentaries, that kind of thing. Sabaton is definitely a documentary band about wars, all kinds of different
I
wars, right?
definitely would probably, and if we're doing like Viking metal, I think, you know, they could be classified as war metal or power metal.
Yeah,
Either way.
yeah. If war metal was a subgenre, these guys would be in it for
I,
sure.
I think it is.
I'm not sure it is. I can't say for a fact
Because, you
because I
know,
haven't seen the title, but
war metal would be very anthemy,
yep,
very chanting. Ooh,
yep,
ooh, you
yep.
know, that whole, and you know, that whole like
The
war anthem style.
the drummer boy, flag boy, leading the march into the battles, kind of feeling. Yep,
Yeah, and you know, there's whole like there's a lot of lyrical lines in all the songs where the entire band chants the line, right, or even
yep,
the chorus.
yep.
The entire band, so it feels like that war drive, like there's a freaking, you know, crowd of warriors all just charging towards the line, you know,
Well,
and it's got that feel to it.
the only thing that I mean, this is definitely Viking metal, war metal, epic metal. Remember how we were saying a power metal could be
Yeah.
like an epic metal? This definitely has that epic metal feel in it, but it also has a good little dose and sprinkling of comedy. But you have to
Yeah.
watch the video to get the comedy because you ain't going to hear it in the lyrics. I mean, there's a couple where it is intentional in the lyrics, but when you watch the videos, it's fucking hilarious. It's good
Right.
fun, it's comedy, and it was intentional, you know. But there's a lot of drinking going on. There's the mead song. When once you die and go to Valhalla, there's plenty of mead to go around. And
Yeah.
there's all kinds of fun stuff that they do. But it is kind of a satire spoof kind of metal band, but they have a very good feeling, kind of like a Sabaton. Sabaton being a little lighter, more fluffy sounding than Tear. Tear to me is
Right.
a little lower, little more oppression, a little more violence in it. Whereas this is on the upper side, lighter side, fluffier side, however
Right.
you want to put it. Very fun band though. Very fun.
Dude. Well, man, this has been a great show, dude. Great discussion. I enjoyed this a lot. I
Yeah.
think we're right at the 2 hour mark right now.
So of all my favorite ones, I mean, when I saw it, I was like, yeah, you can't get any worse than this. This is pretty fucked up. But I don't know, man. There was definitely some good ones. I do think we're gonna have to do a parental advisory sticker, just so I can throw it on something that I would never buy, just so I would buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be something cool to have. I'd like to have one, I like to have one stick on my car. And then on the other side, I want one that says, so what?
Yeah. Yeah. And even if it's, because there's explicit lyrics, there's explicit content, and there's explicit something else, verbiage maybe, or something like that. So we can change that part, do the parental advisory, explicit
I don't think
content
there's
or
no
whatever.
copyright on that. If you can pull an image from offline, you can use it. And nobody's giving a shit about that.
Well, I mean, worst case scenario. I mean, like I said, if we change the color from black to a dark blue and the white to a light gray, it's not theirs, whatever. But
There was a guy down here in Texas that got sued by Metallica for using the M from Metallica in the beginning of his business name.
really,
And the sign on the building had the Metallica M in it too. And they threatened to sue him if he didn't take it down. So he had to take it down and remake the M. But he still made a metal looking M. The dude's into metal, and he's running a business that has nothing to do with it, but he just decided to do that, and it
I
is what
mean,
it is.
this is the asinine part about the world. If you're in it for the money, you can't stop free marketing. Word of mouth. It's the number one advertiser out there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got a big M up there, and people are like, dude, that's a badass M. Where'd you come up with that idea? Metallica.
Yeah.
Who's that? Here, go listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's word of mouth advertising. Now you got a new customer. Fuck, why would you stop that?
Yeah. For me, that's just cool. I'd be like, cool. They're in our band.
I mean, think of it. You're going to spend X amount of dollars on lawyers and court fees and all that other stupid shit and get nothing out of it versus letting the dude leave it out there and maybe getting a few more people buying your albums. Common sense don't work for people, I guess. It's not my thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, you are right. It has been an awesome show. To get a high five over here.
Wait. I don't know which way to go. All right, brother. Well, until next time, all you guys out there, you keep rocking and stay safe, man.
And go check it out. We'll be throwing a few more albums in there to listen to for one of our upcoming podcasts, and we'll keep an eye on the comments section. Which that was really impressive. That the dude from that had the enforced video on his channel that we hosted, and he came and commented on our thing. That was really class act. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was.
So until next time, from me over here at the Frog Pond, and from Mike over there at the Speed Shop, we will mosh out with you next time on another topic, which is still to be determined.
Y'all keep rocking.
Till next time.